Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Srimad Bhagavatam Parivrajikacharya Ashtatara Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtotara Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai New Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Nitya Gaura Brahmananda. Do you want to, Chad? Do you want to use your device to finish writing the verse? I need a book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Liberation, Chapter 10, Chapter 10, The Pastimes of Lord Rāmacandra. We'll be reading a number of verses, starting with 30. Starting 30, with 30, and going all the way up to 50. So, if you like to read along, you could read along, or you could just hear. Thereafter, Lord Rāmacandra found Sita Devi sitting in a small cottage beneath a tree named Shingshapa in a forest of Ashoka trees. She was lean and thin, being aggrieved because of separation from him. Seeing his wife in that condition, Lord Rāmacandra is very compassionate. When Rāmacandra came before her, she was exceedingly happy to see her beloved, and her lotus-like mouth showed her joy. After giving Vibhishan the power to rule the Rakshasa population of Lanka for the duration of 1 kalpa, how long is 1 kalpa? Does anyone remember? Half a day of Brahmas, that's 1 kalpa? How many years is 1 kalpa?
I want to guess 100,000.
It's a long time. Lord Rāmacandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, placed Sita Devi on an airplane decorated with flowers and then got on the plane himself. The period for his living in the forest having ended, the Lord returned to Ayodhya, accompanied by Hanuman, Sugriva, and his brother Lakshman. When Lord Rāmacandra returned to his capital, Ayodhya, he was greeted on the road by the princely order, who showered his body with beautiful, fragrant flowers, while great personalities like Lord Brahma and other demigods glorified the activities of the Lord in great jubilation. Upon reaching Ayodhya, Lord Rāmacandra heard that in his absence his brother Bharat was eating barley cooked in the urine of a cow. Covering his body with the bark of trees, wearing matted locks of hair, and lying on a mattress of kusha. The most merciful Lord very much lamented this. When Lord Bharata understood that Lord Rāmacandra was returning to the capital Ayodhya, he immediately took upon his own head Lord Ramachandra's wooden shoes and came out from his camp at Nandigram. Lord Bharata was accompanied by ministers, priests, and other respectable citizens, by professional musicians vibrating pleasing musical sounds, and by learned Brahmins loudly chanting Vedic hymns. Following in the procession were chariots drawn by beautiful horses with the harness of a golden rope. These chariots were decorated by flags with golden embroidery and by other flags of various sizes and patterns. There were soldiers bedecked with golden armor, servants bearing betel nut, and many well-known and beautiful prostitutes. Many servants followed on foot, bearing an umbrella, whisks, different grades of precious jewels, and other paraphernalia befitting a royal reception.
I'm going to read 35. Verse
number. All right, well, since we're reading this verse right now, then we could chant it. Bharataha, please repeat after me. Praptam akarnya paratmatya purohitai Paduke
Paduke
Shirasi
Shirasi
Nasya
Nasya
Ramam
Ramam
Pratyudyoto
Pratyuto
Grajam
Radam
Bharata Praptam Akarnya Pauramatma Purohitai Paduke Shirasi Nyasya Ramam Pratyudyoto Grajam Bharata Praptam Akarnya Pauramatya Purohitai Paduke Shirasi Nyasya Ramam Pratyudyoto Grajam. Please chant.
Bharata Praptamakarnya Paramatya Purohitai Paduke Shirasi Nyasya Ramam Pratyudyato Grajam
Like to chant? Would anyone online like to chant? Okay. All right. Please repeat after me. Bharataha, Lord Bharata. Praptam, coming back home. Akarnya, hearing. Pauru, all kinds of citizens. Amatya, all the ministers. Purohitai, accompanied by all the priests. Paduke, the two wooden shoes. Shirasi, on the head. Nyasya, keeping. Ramam, into Lord Rāmacandra. Pratyudyataha, going forward to receive. Agrajam, his eldest brother. When Lord Bharata understood that Rāmacandra was returning to the capital Ayodhya, he immediately took upon his own head Lord Rāmachandra's wooden shoes and came out from his camp at Nandigram. Lord Bharata was accompanied by ministers, priests, and other respectable citizens, by professional musicians, vibrating pleasing musical sounds, and by learned Brahmins loudly chanting Vedic hymns. Following in the procession were chariots drawn by beautiful horses with harnesses of golden rope. These chariots were decorated by flags with golden embroidery and by other flags of various sizes and patterns. There were soldiers bedecked with golden armor, servants bearing betel nut, and many well-known and beautiful prostitutes. Many servants followed on foot, bearing an umbrella with different grades of precious jewels and other paraphernalia befitting a royal reception. Accompanied in this way, Lord Bharata, his heart softened in ecstasy and his eyes full of tears, approached Lord Rāmacandra and fell at his lotus feet with great ecstatic love. 640. After offering the wooden shoes before Lord Rāmacandra, Lord Bharata stood with folded hands, his eyes full of tears. And Lord Rāmacandra bathed Bharata with tears while embracing him with both arms for a long time. Accompanied by Mother Sita and Lakshman, Lord Rāmacandra then offered his respectful obeisances unto the learned Brahmins and the elderly persons in the family, and all the citizens of Ayodhya offered their respectful obeisances unto the Lord. The citizens of Ayodhya, upon seeing their king return after a long absence, offered him flower garlands, waved their upper cloths, and danced in great jubilation. O king, Lord Bharata carried Lord Rāmachandra's wooden shoes, Sugriva and Vibhishan carried a whisk and an excellent fan, Hanuman carried a white umbrella, Shatrughna carried a bow and 2 quivers, and Sita Devi carried a water pot filled with water from holy places. Angada carried a sword, and Jambavan, king of Rikshas, carried a golden shield. O King Parikshit, as the Lord sat on his airplane of flowers, with women offering him prayers and reciters chanting about his characteristics, he appeared like the moon with the stars and planets. Thereafter, having been welcomed by his brother Bharat, Lord Rāmacandra entered the city of Ayodhya in the midst of a festival. When he entered the palace, he offered obeisances to all the mothers, including Kaikeyi, and the other wives of Maharaj Dasharath, and especially his own mother, Kaushalya. He also offered obeisances to the spiritual preceptors such as Vashishta. Friends of his own age and younger friends worshipped him. And he returned their respectful obeisances, as did Lakshman and Mother Sita. In this way they all entered the palace. Upon seeing their sons, the mothers of Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, and Shatrughna immediately arose, like unconscious bodies returning to consciousness. The mothers placed their sons on their laps and bathed them with tears, thus relieving themselves of the grief of long separation. The family priest or spiritual master, Vashishta, had Lord Rāmacandra cleanly shaved, freeing him from his matted locks of hair. Then, with the cooperation of the elderly members of the family, he performed the bathing ceremony, Abhishek, for Lord Rāmacandra, with the water of the 4 seas and with other substances, just as it was performed for King Indra. Lord Rāmacandra, fully bathed and his head clean shaven, dressed himself very nicely and was decorated with a garland and ornaments. Thus he shone brightly, surrounded by his brothers and wife, who were similarly dressed and ornamented. Text 50. Being pleased by the full surrender and submission of Lord Bharata, Lord Rāmacandra then accepted the throne of the state. He cared for the citizens exactly like a father, and the citizens, being fully engaged in their occupational duties of varna and āśrama, accepted him as their father. Purport. People are very fond of the pattern of Ram Raja, and even today politicians sometimes form a party called Ram Raja. But unfortunately, they have no obedience to Lord Ram. It is sometimes said that people want the kingdom of God without God. Such an aspiration, however, is never to be fulfilled. Good government can exist when the relationship between the citizens and the government is like that exemplified by Lord Rāmacandra and his citizens. Lord Rāmacandra ruled his kingdom exactly as a father takes care of his children, and the citizens, being obliged to the good government of Lord Rāmacandra, accepted the Lord as their father. Thus, the relationship between the citizens and the government should be exactly like that between father and son. When the sons in a family are well trained, they are obedient to the father and mother, and when the father is well qualified, he takes good care of the children. As indicated here by the words Swadharmam Nirata Varnashrama Gunan Vitaha. The people were good citizens because they accepted the institution of Varna and Ashram, which arranges society in the Varna divisions of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the Ashram divisions of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. This is actual human civilization. People must be trained according to different Varnashram occupational duties, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Chatur Varnam 4.13. Maya Shishtam Gunakarmi Vibhagasha. The 4 Varnas must be established according to varying qualities and work. The first principle for good government is that it must institute this varnashram system. The purpose of varnashram is to enable people to become God conscious. Varnashrama charyavata purushena para puman vishnu aradyate. The entire varnashram scheme is intended to enable people to become Vaishnavas, Vishnu asya devata. When people worship Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord, they become Vaishnavas. Thus, people should be trained to become Vaishnavas through the system of Varna and Ashram, as they were during the reign of Lord Rāmacandra, when everyone was fully trained to follow the Varnashram principles. Simply enforcing laws and ordinances cannot make the citizens obedient and lawful. That is impossible. Throughout the entire world, there are so many states, legislative assemblies, and parliaments, but still the citizens are rogues and thieves. Good citizenship, therefore, cannot be enforced. The citizens must be trained. As there are schools and colleges to train students to become chemical engineers, lawyers, or specialists, and many other departments of knowledge, there must be schools and colleges to train students to become Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis. This will provide the preliminary condition for good citizenship. Varnashrama gunan vitaha. Generally speaking, if the king or president is a Rajarshi, the relationship between the citizens and the chief executive will be clear, and there will be no possibility of disruption in the state, because the number of thieves and rogues will decrease. In Kali Yuga, however, because the Varnashram system is neglected, people are generally thieves and rogues. In the system of democracy, such thieves and rogues naturally collect money from other thieves and rogues, and thus there is chaos in every government, and no one is happy. But here the example of good government is to be found in the reign of Lord Rāmacandra. If people follow this example, there will be good government all over the world. Om Nagyanati Vedandasya Kananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanalitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukum Guridivachalam Pungam Langate Girim Yak Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurunditanam Banshakopdribishcha Kripa Sindhubevicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Lord Rāmacandra has returned from his exile of many years, the forest, which was quite an adventure. Going out there with Sita and Lakshman, and you have Shurpanaka, and you have so many demons, Rakshasas he killed there, and of course we just heard about how eventually he killed Ravana and got back Sita. So in these last verses we're hearing of the beautiful reception that Lord Rāmacandra and his associates are getting. Everyone is so happy, to say the least. They're ecstatic that Lord Rāmacandra is back. Says the mothers, it was as if they were unconscious, they came back to life. So practically everyone was coming back to life, seeing Lord Rāmacandra. So we could only imagine the great happiness that all the citizens were feeling. And when Lord Rāmacandra was enthroned to rule over the citizens, the basis of his ruling was out of his love, out of his affection for them. It says here that Lord Rāmacandra accepted the throne, and then he was caring for the citizens just like a father. Of course, sometimes hearing this nowadays, they're like, oh, a father, what is that? Because in Kali Yuga, unfortunately, sometimes people don't know who their father is. They have no idea. Like their father, sometimes they become a teenager, they ask their mother, oh, who's my father? I've never met him before. And then the teenager tries to look up the father online or something, and then they meet in person. And or the father, maybe they knew him when they were a young child, but the father left when they're 10, didn't come back or something. So there's a lot of that going on. Or maybe the father's just not good. You may know the father, but the father's not good. So, but here, the verse is explaining that Lord Rāmacandra, he cared for his citizens exactly like a father. It means a good father. A good, caring father. And the citizens, they were fully engaged in their occupational duties of varṇa and āśrama. So they were all working in a particular way with Rāmacandra in the center, with God in the center, and they were all in a particular, in an āśrama, as a brahmachari, as a grihasta, as a vanaprastha, as a sannyasi. And they all accepted Rāmacandra as their father. So it was a reciprocal thing going on. He treated them like a father would, and they accepted him as their father. So it was a very beautiful situation in which the government was being run. And sometimes, as Srila Prabhupada's quoting in the purport, that people, they tried to say, let us have Ram Raja again in India, especially because that's where they're familiar. They're not going to say that in America or other places because they're not familiar. But in India, they say, let us have Ram Raja. It was such a wonderful time when Rāmacandra was ruling things. Everything was perfect, because it was. But as Srila Prabhupada mentioned, sometimes they want Ram Raja without Ram. They just want everything to go on nicely, but not Ram. There's no Ram in the picture. Or as Srila Prabhupada mentions, they want the kingdom of God without God, which can never be possible. And when we talk about government and people being elected and so on, Srila Prabhupada would make up terms sometimes. He would make up his own English terms. But with democracy, you remember what Srila Prabhupada called it? Demon crazy. So I'm sure some people wouldn't like hearing that. It's like democracy, we have freedom, right? We have freedom to vote, this, that. Call it demon crazy because you have a bunch of uneducated, ignorant people. They're voting, electing someone in who's not qualified. So you have a bunch of citizens who are not qualified, and they're electing another unqualified person. So that we see throughout the world. So Srila Prabhupada, he gives the solution to all of this, that generally, looking throughout the world, there's a lot of chaos to different degrees. Sometimes it's full-on chaos. There's a bunch of thieves and rogues plundering everything and everyone, and they have taken over. The government doesn't have any control. Sometimes, like that fellow, what was that fellow? It's been quite, it's a sensational topic in modern times within the last 5 years or so. Where was that country? I'm forgetting. It was that country where he came in as the president, and there was a bunch of criminals, and I don't think it was that. You want to know where that is? Druida Prabhu. You wanna? Druida Prabhu. Venezuela. It was Venezuela, right? Yeah, Well, I'm forgetting, but is recently that country where the person took over and he got all the criminals and he just put them in jail. You remember that place? El Salvador. Yeah, it's a very sensational thing within the last 5 years. I mean, that was quite an operation he did. He literally found every criminal or people even just slightly connected, it seemed, because it's hard to exactly tell. I mean, who's, and he just got them all, locked them up in a very intense prison, which a lot of people, they complain about the condition of the prison. But that's what he did. He just locked them all up. So you have, so you have countries where literally there are countries throughout the world where literally criminals just take over. The government doesn't have any control. And then you have things to lesser degrees. So there's like a gradation going on. What's the level of thieves and rogues taking things over. So Srila Prabhupada gives a solution that governments cannot simply demand people to follow the laws, but they have to be trained. They have to be trained. So that means there's a complete like revolution that needs to happen, actually, in order for things to be smoothly running like they should in the world. And that revolution starts with people becoming educated and following the principles of varnashram and the principles of Krishna consciousness. And once they begin to follow that, they can educate their own children. And as Srila Prabhupada is saying here, he's putting stress that there should be colleges or schools that teach people how to be brahmachari, how to be grihastha, how to be vanaprastha, how to be sannyasi, and how to be a shudra and a brahmin and a vaishya and all of that. There should be schools, varnashram college, if you want to call it, or schools where they train people. So the more we as individuals can learn the principles of varnashram dharma, with Krishna in the center, of course, Daivi varnashram, the more we can learn these principles individually, and the more we can try to follow them, and the more we can educate people in those principles, the more we can ourselves be peaceful and happy, and the more we can make a positive difference in the world. So everything starts with education, and then from education we have to apply those principles. And without education and without applying those principles, what do we have? It's just chaos, destruction. It's just animal life, really. So to combat all of that, we need to become educated more and more and more, and then try to follow. And in this way, we can be a positive influence in the world. And in our own way, starting with the Hare Krishna San Diego community and starting within our homes and so on, we could have this Ram Rajya, or this great blessing of living in the kingdom of Krishna, even in this world, or the kingdom of Rama, even in this world. Okay, does anybody have any question or comment? I think Chad does.
I was just thinking in Hare Krishna, in general, I don't think it really matters what system you have in place for society, even communism or whatever. It's always the officials at the top that run things
Yes.
that ruin it.
Yes.
So you need somebody that's pious and virtuous and
Yes.
in the mode of goodness for things
Yes.
really to work.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, whatever system people follow, there's going to be, what is it called? Cheating going on. If someone's not strongly God conscious or strongly Krishna conscious, there's going to be cheating. They're going to cheat people. Usually this comes in cheating people out of their money in different ways, overtaxing and so on. There's so many ways they become implicated in cheating.
If I remember right, at the end of the journey of self-discovery, there's a section that Srila Prabhupada talks about communism and that very subject.
Spiritual communism, yeah, everything belongs to God. So
he referred back to, anyway, the actual communism and discussed that, if I remember right.
yeah. Yeah, so we're a long ways away from, looking at it like we're a temple here, but there's a large society that we're in. So everything has become very far from Vedic tradition or Vedic standards. But at least within the Hare Krishna community here, we want to try to establish things as far as possible. Establish things in the sense, live according to the principles we hear of in the Srimad Bhagavatam. All right, any other question?
Anyways, it was nice. I really like this point when Prabhupada said the whole varnashram scheme is to make Vaishnavas. I thought that was kind of funny. A whole big old scheme. It was like thinking like what happens if you forget the whole purpose of it? What different deviations of varnashrams are they? And then another one was, if we're trying to educate people.
You want to start with that one first? Yeah. So, just being a brahmachari or grihastha or vanaprastha or sannyasi, or just be working as a shudra or brahmin or so on, that is not the point. But the point is to do those things with Krishna in mind, or Krishna in the center. So, the problem with just trying to live according to varnashram principles without Krishna, that's kind of like a lot what goes on in India. To some degree nowadays, because the whole world is degrading in different ways. But still, you have some remnants of that going on. But the problem with that is that it's the platform is not steady. It's not transcendental. It's not fixed. It's not spiritual. It's pious. It's religious, but it's not transcendental. Srila Prabhupada one time, when he was over at some life members' home, he was there with his disciples, and then the man was over there, maybe from like here to that door, the man was over there. And Srila Prabhupada, he said very quietly to his disciples, He said, you see that man over there? Who is the life members were there at his home, and Srila Prabhupada told the disciples that he could be following varnashram to a very strict degree, but still he'll go to hell. That was Prabhupada's statement. And you think, oh, why? Why is that? Because it's not a steady platform. A person's pious, a person's religious, a person's good, but that could change. Something happens in life, some circumstances come, and the modes are always fighting for predominance in a person's consciousness. So the steady platform, or the fixed platform, or the spiritual platform that is safe is Krishna consciousness. So that's the problem with just following varnashram. And actually, another verse from our scripture, it says that what's the last one? Shrama eva hi kevalam. If by following all of these rules and regulations and varnashram and so on, if it doesn't awaken, or if it doesn't lead to awakening love for Krishna, it's just shrama eva hi kevalam. It's simply a waste of time. So the idea is that these things have to lead there. They have to be a platform by which we're moving to that goal. What was the other one?
It was talking about educating other people and ourselves, and just thinking about if you actually want to make a difference in somebody's life, it's not by constantly correcting them. It's actually by trying to inspire them and showing some type of compassion or something like that. But the question is how do you do that, or how do you have the patience or the proper understanding of trying to guide somebody or something like that, if you're trying to teach them all these different things of Krishna consciousness and whatnot.
Yeah, well, everyone's
at
at different levels, so we have to be patient in terms of trying to, with ourselves and with others, and trying to educate ourselves and trying to educate others. We have to be patient because we're all at different levels. And some people will take to it quick, some people will take to it slow, some people will take to it medium pace. And it's recommended that we don't teach people who don't want to learn from us. There's no use. Just like a guru doesn't accept a disciple unless they're willing to be educated, or they're serious about education, they're serious about surrendering to that process. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So many people we find in our life, maybe you could take it as a blessing, are not willing to be taught by us. So don't have to spend your time like that. You could teach by example. Maybe they'll try to pick something up from example. We should always teach by example because that's actually the most important thing. Not just speaking, but not you sit here for 30 minutes and give a talk, but then what do you do? What's your behavior when you descend from the seat? And throughout the day, what's your behavior? So it has to be, we have to teach by example. That's the most important thing.
How do you think about it throughout the day, or what's a constant reminder or meditation that to follow? Because then it's kind of difficult. You just kind of to lead by example, but also have that in your mind that I'm an example, or so I should be following.
Well, we have to look in the mirror and just tell ourselves that every day. I have to be a good example. Yeah, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you look in the mirror and say, okay, I have to be a good example today. And, of course, by hearing. If we don't hear daily, Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, then we tend to forget. It's a very forgetful age. We tend to be in Maya, we tend to forget. Conditioned soul means to forget. So the more we could hear, Nityam Bhagavata Seva, therefore we're having classes every day, every evening. We're listening to classes throughout the day. Because then we'll remember, okay, this is what I should be doing, or else we forget. So that's why it's important to hear regularly.
Hare Krishna. One last thing. The fact that a lot of people aren't open to Krishna consciousness, it just made me think about the importance then of prasadam or prasad distribution, like Sankarshan Prabhu does it, because, they don't really know, so.
Yeah, about prasadam distribution, I plan to read some quotes soon. There's a number of quotes Prabhupada has about prasadam distribution, the importance of it. But it's very important activity. And for people who are not, like Srila Prabhupada said, the most important thing for general people is just kirtan and prasadam. The books are, of course, the most important activity in terms of distribution, but the minority will actually be able to, are studious or inclined like that. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada stressed a lot, if you're going to find anybody who's studious, they're going to be at colleges. I mean, even then, you may not find people who are intellectually active, even at colleges. They're just trying to run through the system so they could get a good paying job, so they don't suffer too much. But if you're going to find anyone, if there's any chance of finding anyone whose intellect, the switch is on, then you'll find them at the colleges. And also there are young people there. Young people have not made up their mind what they're going to do with their life. They haven't chose their religion, they haven't chose their profession, they haven't chose their spouse, they haven't chosen anything. So they're up for being influenced. So therefore there's a lot of stress of going to colleges. And you see certain circumstances where, like, it was in Buffalo. That's a place. I don't know why they call it Buffalo, but it's a place in America. So a lot of buffaloes there? Okay. Anyways. Buffalo brain? Yeah. Anyway, there's a place in Buffalo. So there's something like 10 devotees, and they were all, I mean, we could go through the list, but they're all like they all became leaders of the Hare Krishna movement, and they did like decades and decades and decades of service, just from one preaching program from a college. Yes, and they're still going. There's Borijan Prabhu. There's, there's a number of them. You want to tell some names?
Bhagavan. Gunagrai Maharaj. He made a bunch of them.
Yeah. Bibi Govinda
Bibi Govinda Swami. Actually, Lakshmi Moni came out of there with her husband, Jagadish, who was prominent at one point.
Yeah.
In charge of the Gurukul.
All from one. Imagine if you're the one who started that. You're like, all right, I got some good people here.
Rupanuga got to give a course on Bhakti in the university, and they were chanting Hare Krishna and everything. Kushakrata came out of there too.
Yeah, so like so many. So as much as people are not interested in Krishna consciousness, that shouldn't be our meditation. But there's so many people who are interested or will become interested in Krishna consciousness. And as Srila Prabhupada said, we don't want many stars. That's what he said one time. We don't want many stars. He said we want one moon. Why? Because a moon can illuminate so much. So he said we don't need many people, just a few people. Of course, as Srila Prabhupada said, is Krishna's mercy that I was looking for one moon, but there's so many moons. He's talking about his disciples. So just like out of that group from Buffalo, so many wonderful devotees came. But prasadam distribution, just like I've noticed here, because we do our little Taco Tuesday here, and sometimes there might be a tendency in people's minds, or maybe devotees' minds sometimes, it's like, how serious are these people? How interested are these people? It's because you're not saying, hey, come to Taco Tuesday and pay $15.95, and then you'll get your prasadam. So sometimes people may wonder, like, what's going on with these people? But personally, I was just noticing last night how yes, how I have noticed a number of the people who come on Tuesday, and how there's been some shift in their in their in their consciousness, which is displayed externally on their body, because they say you could read the face. The face is index of the mind, so I could see that they become more brighter, more alive, and yeah, and I think, and I also was looking, and they were chanting. These are new people who don't have much experience with Krishna consciousness, but I could see that by the devotees being kind to them, by them taking prasadam, that they're gradually elevating. So it is important, yeah. So prasadam distribution ki jai. I think there'll be some tonight, right?
Hare Krishna.
Ocean Beach. we got Sankarshan. Maybe we should call him Shiva instead. Because Shiva he associates with different types of people. So sometimes out there in Ocean Beach, there's different types of people. Yes, Vanessa?
Hare Krishna. Thank you. I just wanted to tell a story on Prashad, because it was kind of funny last night. Govinda's, we have, a pretty active restaurant.
Oh, yeah,
here.
That's active, yeah.
And, the gem show's starting, so it's getting kind of hectic.
I see.
You cleared out for that. But we had a couple last night that came. They were there for their first time, so it was also really busy, and it was their first time. And they were just locals. They weren't here for the gem show. So we ran out of seating indoors, but we have the patio, and they were complaining it's cold, and so we offered them a seat on the floor in the temple room, thinking they would like that. And they were kind of offended by that. And so anyways, they went and sat outside, and I was a little hesitant, but a while later, I brought out some water for them, and their whole demeanor changed completely, because they were like halfway through their meal, and they were like the happiest, people. So I just felt
that's good.
Yeah, that's like definitely a good sign for Krishna Prasad. And also, just in terms of being a good example and leadership-wise, Sindhamani says that that is a token of leadership, like being actively a good example in your community, in your family life, and also in your workplace.
Yeah.
So I think to keep in our minds. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, about Sindhamani, I've been to a number of temples, and anyways, I don't want to get too much into the detail, but sometimes you hear complaints about where you go and some leadership and this and that. But when I go to Tucson, I don't hear any complaints. No one complains. Everybody's quite happy. About prasadam distribution, just one last thing. In Tucson, because you mentioned the restaurant, there was one person, one bhakta, and he would just come and just be there pretty much throughout the day and just taking prasadam. And he'd be there for like hours, kind of like grazing like a cow or something, like, the buffet, just hanging out there. How people do sometimes. So devotees were thinking, oh, who is this person? And they weren't really thinking to be like a devotee or anything, just taking prasad. And then at one particular point, he started changing. And then he became a devotee from that association with the devotees and the prasadam. And then now he's actually distributed the most books out of anybody in the whole world historically. That's Parameshvara Prabhu. Yeah. He's over there on the East Coast still distributing a lot of books. But
actually here, he visits Tucson.
Yeah. He still visits.
Yeah, he's staying for another couple weeks.
Oh, he's there now. Okay.
Yeah, we get his association for a good portion of the winter months. So.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.